Well, come to my YouTube channel. Do not forget to subscribe, likes and comments. The stars were silent. The hum of the ship's engines, a soft lullaby to the crew aboard the Aurora, was the only sound in the vastness of space. Captain Lara Mitchell, with her sharp eyes fixed on the star charts, glanced up from the console, the momentary distraction enough to make her feel uneasy. For a brief second, it felt as though the universe itself was watching her, holding its breath. A shiver crawled down her spine. "Captain, we're approaching the coordinates," Lieutenant Markson's voice cut through the tension, his fingers dancing over the touchscreen controls. "We've found something. It's strange." Lara's heart rate quickened. She'd heard this kind of report before. Every deep space mission had its anomalies, its strange readings. But there was something in Markson's voice this time. Something that made her feel like they were crossing a line, stepping into the unknown. "We're not alone out here," Markson added, his voice strained. Lara's gaze snapped to the view screen. The Aurora's trajectory shifted as Markson adjusted the course, bringing the ship closer to the anomaly. The stars, once familiar and comforting, were slowly swallowed by the growing void ahead. A darkness unlike any nebula, no stellar body, no natural formation. It stretched like a black ocean, as if something vast was hidden just beneath its surface. "All systems normal?" Lara asked, still unsure of what she was seeing. "Mostly," Markson said, tapping furiously at his controls. "But something's off. Our sensors aren't picking up any debris. No radiation spikes. No gravitational anomalies. It's like, this place doesn't exist." Lara leaned forward. "Scan deeper." The silence was deafening as Markson obeyed. His hands paused mid-air as if the ship itself had just stopped breathing. "Captain." He hesitated, voice barely above a whisper. It's an artifact. An old one. A huge one. And it's right in front of us." Lara's eyes narrowed. "Artifact," she repeated, trying to keep the edge of disbelief from her voice. "What kind of artifact?" The ship's sensor pinged, and the view screen flickered. The darkness ahead seemed to shift. No, it wasn't just shifting, it was moving. Slowly. A massive, metallic structure, buried deep within the blackness, began to take shape. "Tell me we're not seeing what I think we're seeing," Lara muttered. But the view screen was showing the truth. A colossal, ancient spacecraft, far larger than anything humanity had ever built, floated in the dark void like a ghost from another age. Its surface, dark and smooth, had no visible markings or signs of civilization. Its purpose, its origin, were unknown. "Markson, how long has this thing been here?" Lara demanded. "I don't know," Markson said, his voice now filled with awe and something darker. "Its surface looks like it's been here for millennia. I can't explain it. But it's emitting a low-frequency signal. It's calling to us." "Calling?" Lara's stomach twisted. "You're saying it's alive?" "Not alive, Captain. But conscious, maybe. It's like it's waiting for us to make the next move." A cold dread washed over Lara. She felt her heartbeat pounding in her ears. Every instinct screamed at her to turn the ship around, to leave this place. But that would be a coward's retreat, and she was no coward. No, they had to understand what this was, what it meant. For humanity. For their future. "Prepare a landing party," Lara ordered, swallowing the unease that gripped her throat. "We're going in." The Aurora drifted closer to the artifact, its immense size impossible to fathom. The closer they got, the more the strange feeling grew in Lara's chest. This thing was ancient, alien, yet something about it felt familiar. She couldn't explain why. But she had to know what lay inside. Inside the landing bay, the crew prepared. Lara adjusted the straps of her suit, feeling the weight of it settle around her. She looked up at Lieutenant Markson, who was already suited up, his face a mixture of excitement and trepidation. "You're sure about this?" he asked. Lara nodded firmly. "We don't turn away from the unknown. We face it head-on." The team gathered their equipment, weapons, and tools, though none of them believed they'd need them. What would they possibly face in a place like this? No one had ever made contact with such an artifact. The knowledge of the galactic community was vast, but ancient technologies like this? The data was sparse, the information scattered. When the airlock opened, the world outside was silent. The artifact was close now, its silhouette looming against the stars. Lara's heart skipped a beat as the bay doors opened fully. A dark, metallic surface lay ahead of them, an expanse so large that it swallowed everything else. "Stay alert," Lara warned, her voice steady, though inside, the unease had deepened into something sharper. "We don't know what we're walking into." They stepped off the ship and onto the surface of the artifact. The air was thick with a strange energy, as though the very molecules in the atmosphere were vibrating in unison with the ship's mysterious signal. "Captain," Lieutenant Doran called out, his voice carrying through the static of their comms, "you need to see this." Lara hurried over to him, her boots crunching against the cold, metallic floor. Doran was crouched by a set of enormous carvings etched into the surface. The symbols were unlike anything she'd ever seen, alien, yet not entirely foreign. The pattern seemed to pulse with a faint glow, as if they were alive, changing when no one was looking. "What is it?" she asked, her voice tense. "I don't know," Doran replied. "But I think it's a message. And if I'm reading this right." He paused, eyes widening in disbelief. "It's in a language we can understand." Lara's pulse quickened. "What does it say?" Doran's fingers traced the symbols, his breath coming faster now. "It says, 'Do not awaken the slumbering.'" A chill ran down Lara's spine. The language of the stars was mysterious, but she had never seen anything quite like this. "Slumbering?" she repeated, frowning. "What does that mean?" Before Doran could answer, a sudden vibration shook the artifact beneath their feet, sending a ripple of fear through the crew. "Captain!" Markson shouted, his voice thick with urgency. "Something's happening. The artifact, it's powering up." Lara spun around, her eyes wide. The ground beneath her feet hummed with unnatural energy. The artifact's surface began to glow, its metallic skin vibrating as though it were waking from a long slumber. The low-frequency signal that had first called to them grew louder, a resonance that felt like it was moving through her very bones. Then, in the distance, a deep, resonant sound echoed across the expanse, as if the entire artifact was breathing. The hum shifted, becoming a pulse, then a thrum. Something was shifting inside it. Something powerful. "We need to get back to the ship," Lara ordered, voice trembling despite her attempts to remain calm. "Now." But as they turned to run, the artifact's energy surged. A sharp, blinding light flared from the center of the massive structure, illuminating the entire team. In that moment, everything stopped. The light was so bright that it swallowed everything: space, time, reality. And then, darkness. When Lara opened her eyes again, it took a moment for the world around her to come into focus. The overwhelming brightness of the artifact's pulse faded slowly, replaced by a more insidious darkness. Her head felt heavy, as though it had been struck with an invisible force. She pushed herself up from the cold, metal ground, instinctively reaching for her helmet, but it wasn't there. The cool air around her made her realize with a shock that she wasn't on the surface of the artifact anymore. Where was she? Lara's heart raced as her eyes scanned the surroundings. The ship, her crew, the artifact, they were all gone. She was alone, standing in the middle of what looked like a vast, dimly lit chamber. The walls around her were smooth and angular, a strange metal that seemed to shimmer faintly in the darkness. Etched into the surface were the same alien symbols she'd seen earlier. They pulsed gently now, like the heartbeat of the place, lighting up in slow rhythm. As her pulse quickened in fear, Lara took a tentative step forward. The chamber was enormous, too large to be contained within any ship. It stretched out in every direction, and yet she felt an inexplicable pressure around her, as though the space itself was constricting, pushing her in. Lara. A voice broke through the silence. She spun around, her heart leaping in her chest. In her chest. It was Markson. His voice, though familiar, was distant, as though coming from somewhere far away. Markson, she called out, her voice unnaturally loud in the stillness. Where are you? There was no response. The only sound was the rhythmic pulse of the symbols, the low hum of the artifact's unseen energy. Her instincts screamed at her to run, to find the others, to find a way out, but she didn't move. Instead, Lara stood rooted to the spot, every muscle tense. A sense of unease prickled at the back of her neck, but she forced herself to take another step forward. A flash of light erupted from the far end of the chamber, bright enough to make her shield her eyes. When the light dimmed, she saw it. The source of the pulse. It was a figure, tall, cloaked in a dark, flowing robe. Its features were obscured, but the presence it exuded was unmistakable. An alien, but not one she had ever seen before. It was humanoid in shape, but its silhouette was unlike anything in the Galactic database. Its body seemed to shimmer, as though made of stardust and shadow, flickering in and out of view like a mirage. Who are you? Lara demanded, her voice shaking but resolute. The figure didn't respond at first. Instead, it simply stood there, watching her, its unblinking eyes, if they could even be called eyes, glowing with an eerie light. Lara instinctively reached for her weapon, but when she touched the spot on her uniform where it should have been, she found it empty. Panic flared within her for a moment, but she swallowed it down, forcing herself to stand tall. She wasn't going to let herself be intimidated. The figure stepped forward, its movement slow and deliberate. "You have awakened the relic," it said, its voice a strange, musical tone that sent a chill down her spine. "And now, you are bound to it." Lara narrowed her eyes. "What do you mean, bound to it?" The figure tilted its head, a gesture that seemed almost curious. "You are one of the few who can understand the truth. You are here because you are human." A cold realization hit Lara. "You know who we are." The figure nodded, its form shifting as if its very being was made of liquid darkness. "Yes. I know who you are. But it is not the time for answers. It is the time for questions." Lara took a cautious step back, but the figure's voice stopped her. "Do you wish to know why humanity was banished?" The figure's words echoed like a distant memory, familiar yet haunting. Lara's breath hitched. You know about the banishment?" The figure's glowing eyes softened, its shimmering presence flickering for war had something to do with their unexplained potential, but this? This was beyond anything she had imagined. "Too powerful," she echoed. "What do you mean?" "We were outmatched, outclassed by the Galactic Council. Our technology was primitive compared to the other species." The figure remained silent for a moment, and when it spoke again, its voice was lower, carrying a weight of ancient knowledge. "You think your technology was the cause of your banishment?" "No, Captain. It was your ability to manipulate energy. Dark energy. The kind of power that the Council deemed dangerous." Lara felt her heart skip a beat. Dark energy? The very concept sounded like a myth. A theory reserved for ancient texts and fringe science. But she had witnessed firsthand the power of the artifact, the energy it had unleashed. It was undeniable. "You humans," the figure continued, a hint of reverence in its voice, "you are the only species in the galaxy with the ability to harness this energy. The energy that can bend space, break time, and alter reality itself. But you do not yet understand it. You do not yet know what it can do. Lara's mind raced. Why didn't the council tell us about this, she demanded. Why hide the truth? The figure's form rippled, like the shifting of a shadow across a wall. The council feared you, Captain. Feared what you might become. They knew that if humanity ever unlocked the full potential of dark energy, you would be unstoppable. They could not risk it. So they banished you. Isolated you. Lara's thoughts were a whirlwind. Banished. Exiled for the very thing that made humanity unique. Dark energy was the key to their survival, and perhaps to their ultimate power, but it had been hidden from them. Suppressed. Until now. But the more she learned, the more questions emerged. How did you know all this? Who are you? The figure didn't answer immediately. Instead, it gestured toward the glowing symbols etched into the walls of the chamber. As Lara's gaze followed its hand, she realized that the symbols were not just random markings, they were a map, a history. These symbols tell the story of a long-forgotten war, the figure explained. A war fought between your kind and the ancient beings who once ruled the galaxy. You were not just soldiers in that war. You were the key. You were the ones who could tip the balance. Lara stepped closer, her mind racing. A war? Humanity had never known about such a thing. History had not recorded it. But what if it was true? What if the very reason the Council feared humanity was rooted in a forgotten past? The figure continued. The war you fought was not about conquest. It was about survival. And in that war, humanity discovered the secret of dark energy, something no one had ever seen before. Lara's breath caught in her throat. What happened to those beings? The ones you called the rulers of the galaxy? The figure's eyes dimmed slightly. They were not what they seemed. The ancient empire was built on the control of energy. They sought to control all life, bending it to their will. But humanity rebelled, unleashing forces that the empire could not contain. They sealed you away, stripped you of your knowledge, and wiped your history from the records. Lara's pulse pounded in her ears. This was more than just a tale of war. It was the story of humanity's existence, a story of power, betrayal, and fear. But we can't be the only ones left, Lara said, thinking aloud. If humanity's history was erased, then why am I here now? Why is the artifact calling to me? The figure smiled faintly, its form shimmering like a fading star. Because the time has come for the truth to be known, it said softly. The relic you activated is a key. A key to unlocking what was once lost. And you, Captain, are the one chosen to find it. Lara stood in stunned silence, her mind reeling. There was so much she had yet to learn, so much she had yet to understand. The artifact wasn't just a relic. It was a doorway to humanity's past, and its future. You will learn more, the figure said, its voice distant now, as though it was fading into the ether. But first, you must understand this, the Council has not forgotten. They know you are awakening. And they will stop at nothing to keep you from discovering the truth. With that, the figure vanished, leaving Lara alone in the chamber, surrounded by the pulsing symbols and the heavy weight of history. The darkness of the chamber felt oppressive, the air thick with an eerie quiet. Lara stood frozen, her mind racing to process the revelation that the figure had just shared with her. Humanity, exiled from the galaxy not for weakness, but for its unmatched power with dark energy, an energy that could alter the very fabric of reality. And yet, she knew there was more to the story. She could feel it in the pit of her stomach, a gnawing suspicion that they had stumbled onto something far more dangerous than any of them could have anticipated. The figure had vanished, leaving only the pulsing symbols on the walls as the remnants of the ancient knowledge. The chamber felt colder now, as though the very walls were closing in around her. Lara felt a chill run down her spine. She wasn't alone. The footsteps grew louder. They were not the hesitant steps of a frightened crew member, but the deliberate, calculated pace of someone, or something, coming for her. Lara turned sharply, her eyes scanning the dimly lit chamber for any sign of movement. The air felt thicker now, heavier with an unsettling presence. She could hear them now, several of them. They were moving in unison, methodical, as if they had always known where to find her. There was no echo in the chamber. The walls seemed to absorb sound, as though they themselves were part of the ancient, hidden mystery. Lara stepped back slowly, her fingers brushing the cold surface of the alien symbols etched into the walls. The map they formed was beginning to make sense, but it wasn't the time to decipher it. Not now. She turned, looking for an escape route, but the chamber stretched endlessly, its walls seemingly never-ending. The only way out, it seemed, was to face whatever was coming for her. There was no hiding, no running. Not anymore. The footsteps were closer now, but there was no sign of the figures who made them. And then, just as Lara thought she couldn't take it anymore, a form emerged from the shadows. It wasn't humanoid, not entirely. The creature was tall, but its proportions were wrong, its limbs elongated and thin. Its skin shimmered like liquid silver, and its eyes, if they could be called eyes, were twin pools of blackness, reflecting the glow of the symbols around them. It spoke, its voice harsh and rasping. Lara Mitchell. Captain of the Aurora. Lara's heart raced. Who are you? She demanded, standing her ground despite the terror creeping into her chest. The creature tilted its head, a gesture so eerily human it sent a shiver down her spine. We are the Watchers, it replied. The ones who see what is hidden. The ones who guard the secrets of the galaxy. Lara's pulse quickened. The Watchers? She had never heard of them. And yet, something about them seemed familiar, as though they were part of the very history the figure had spoken of. What do you want with me? She demanded, keeping her voice steady. Why have you brought me here? The Watcher stepped forward, its movements slow and deliberate. We did not bring you here. You came on your own. You activated the relic, and now you are bound to its fate. Lara's mind raced. Bound to its fate, she repeated, her voice tinged with disbelief. I didn't choose this. I didn't ask for this. You didn't have to, the Watcher said softly. The relic chose you. And now, you are the key to unlocking what was hidden, what was lost. Lara swallowed, trying to steady her breath. What are you talking about? I don't understand. The history of your people, the Watcher replied, its voice deepening. It was erased for a reason. You were exiled because your potential was too great. The power you possess, it could change everything. The Council knew that. And they feared it. Lara's head spun. The truth was beginning to form, but it was still unclear, tangled in layers of secrecy and lies. You say the Council fears humanity, Lara said slowly. But why? What do they fear us doing with this power? The Watcher's eyes glinted, its mouth twisting into something resembling a smile. You are unaware, Captain. But your people, humans, are the only ones capable of controlling the power of dark energy. You are the only ones who can reshape the galaxy. The Council cannot allow that. Not when their grip on the galaxy is so fragile. Lara's thoughts swirled like a storm. The Council, the ones who had exiled humanity, had done so because of their fear of humanity's potential. They were not just trying to keep humanity out of the war, they were trying to keep them from claiming power. From shifting the balance of the galaxy in their favor. But what if the Watchers were right? What if humanity truly had the power to alter the galaxy? The Council wants to suppress us, Lara muttered. But why now? Why come after us now, after all this time? The Watcher's gaze hardened, its form flickering as though it was struggling to hold its shape. Because you have awakened. And once awakened, there is no going back. The power is yours now, whether you are ready for it or not. Lara's stomach churned. She was beginning to understand. She was no longer just a captain. She was part of something far bigger. Something that could reshape everything. The future of humanity, and the galaxy, now rested in her hands. But the Council. She started, her voice faltering for a moment. How do we stop them? How do we fight them when we don't even understand this power? The Watcher's eyes flashed with an unreadable emotion. You cannot fight them without understanding what you hold. The relic is a doorway, but not just to knowledge. It is a weapon. A tool that can either save or destroy everything you know. It will require more than just strength. It will require the wisdom of those who came before you. But you must unlock it before the Council finds you. Lara swallowed, feeling the weight of the Watcher's words settle heavily on her shoulders. She had a choice, but it was a dangerous one. She was being thrust into a battle that she didn't fully understand, armed with only fragments of information, and yet the consequences of failing were unimaginable. Before she could respond, another presence entered the chamber, another Watcher, but this one was different. Taller, with more pronounced features. It moved forward with a fluid grace, like a creature of the shadows. Captain Mitchell, the new Watcher said, its voice deep and resonant. The time is near. You must make your choice. The Council is already hunting you. Lara's mind raced. The Watchers were offering her a chance to learn the truth, to wield a power that could change everything. But at what cost? Was she ready for this? Was humanity ready for this? We've already seen what happens when the Council fears something, Lara said, her voice hardening with resolve. They won't stop. They'll hunt us down. They'll destroy us if we don't act. The second Watcher nodded. Yes. The Council will stop at nothing to keep you from claiming your place. But if you unlock the power of the relic, you will change the course of history. How do I unlock it? Lara asked, her voice tight with urgency. What do I need to do? The first Watcher stepped forward, extending its hand. You must journey to the heart of the artifact. Only there will you find the truth. The knowledge that has been hidden for eons. But be warned, there are those who do not wish for you to succeed. You will not be alone in your quest. The word sent a chill through Lara's bones. There were others who wanted the power of the relic for themselves. But who were they? And why hadn't she encountered them yet? You must act quickly, the second Watcher said. The Council's agents are already closing in on your position. They will not give you another chance. Lara's resolve solidified. Then I have no choice. I will find the heart of the artifact. And I will uncover the truth. The roar echoed again, louder this time. Lara's heart raced as she spun around, her breath coming in shallow gasps. In the darkness beyond, shadows moved with terrifying speed. The shape that had emerged from the depths of the chamber was now more than just a distant figure. It was a massive creature, fierce, menacing, and unmistakably alive. Its eyes glowed with an unnatural light, and its form seemed to flicker between reality and some otherworldly plane, its body shifting like a mirage. The Watchers, who had been silent until now, stepped back, their presence flickering with a sudden tension. Lara's mind raced as she tried to process the situation. The Watchers had warned her about the dangers ahead, but she had never imagined something like this, something so dark, so hungry. Lara, you must go now, the first Watcher said urgently, its voice sharp. The heart of the relic is your only chance. The truth lies there, but you must reach it before it is too late. Lara's instincts screamed at her to flee, but she knew she couldn't leave the Watchers behind. They had been her guides, her source of knowledge in this alien world. But there was no time for hesitation. The creature was closing in, and the only way out was forward. Where do I go? She shouted over her shoulder, trying to keep her composure. There is a tunnel to the east, the second Watcher replied, its voice as calm as ever, despite the danger that was rapidly approaching. It leads to the core. But be warned, Captain, the path is not without its trials. It will test your resolve. The Council's agents are already on their way to intercept you. Lara nodded, the urgency of the situation hitting her like a wave. She had no choice. She had to trust the Watchers. She had to trust that the path they were offering her was the only way to uncover the truth, and, more importantly, to survive. Stay close, Lara ordered, turning toward the narrow passage that the Watchers had indicated. But as she moved, a sharp screech tore through the air, followed by the sound of heavy footfalls. The creature was coming. Before she could react, the Watcher who had been closest to her raised its arm, and a shimmering barrier materialized between them and the beast. The creature's snarl echoed through the chamber, but it was momentarily halted by the barrier, its claws raking against the invisible force field. "Go now," the Watcher commanded, its voice strained with effort. "We will hold it back for as long as we can, but you must move quickly. The truth is your only hope." Lara didn't hesitate. She sprinted toward the tunnel, her legs pumping with urgency. She could feel the heat from the creature's breath on her neck as she ran, but the barrier held, at least for now. The tunnel was narrow, winding through the rock like a maze. As Lara pushed forward, she felt an overwhelming sense of isolation. There was no sound now, only the rhythmic pounding of her footsteps echoing in the confined space. The walls of the tunnel were smooth, almost perfectly straight, and the air was thick with the scent of ancient dust. It was clear that this place had not been disturbed for eons. But Lara didn't have time to contemplate the silence. She could hear the low hum of the artifact's energy in the distance, the pulse that had drawn her here. She was getting closer to the heart of the relic. The power that had been hidden for so long, power that could either save or destroy everything, was within reach. But the path to it was fraught with danger. She came to a sharp turn in the tunnel, and suddenly, the air around her grew colder. A flickering light illuminated the walls, casting long, dark shadows. As she moved deeper into the corridor, Lara felt a strange pull, like a magnetic force guiding her forward. The tunnel opened up into a cavernous chamber, its vastness taking her breath away. The walls were lined with more of the glowing symbols, their pulsating light giving the entire room an ethereal glow. In the center of the chamber was a massive structure, an ancient device that hummed with power. The heart of the relic. Lara stopped in her tracks, her eyes widening in awe. She had expected something monumental, but the sight before her was beyond anything she could have imagined. The structure before her was enormous, made of some kind of gleaming black metal that shimmered with an almost liquid quality. It seemed to pulse with energy, its surface shifting like liquid under the influence of an unseen force. The heart of the relic. The source of the power. But as Lara moved closer, she realized something that chilled her to the bone. The device wasn't dormant. It was active, alive, even, and the energy it emitted seemed to reach out and grasp at her, pulling her in. It was calling to her, just as the Watchers had said it would. The question was, could she control it? She stepped forward, her breath catching in her throat as the device reacted to her presence. The symbols on the walls began to glow brighter, and the air crackled with energy. She reached out cautiously, her fingers brushing the surface of the relic. A shock of energy coursed through her body, and her vision blurred. For a moment, she felt like she was floating, weightless. As though the very fabric of space and time was bending around her. She saw flashes, visions of the past, of battles fought long ago, of a galactic empire that spanned countless stars. But there was more. There were faces, fleeting glimpses of beings from across the galaxy, some alien, others human. And then, in the blink of an eye, everything shifted. The vision changed, and she saw herself. But not as she was now. She was standing at the head of an army, commanding legions of soldiers, her eyes burning with determination. She saw a future where humanity wielded the power of dark energy, reshaping the galaxy to its will. But it was not a future of peace. It was a future of domination. A future of destruction. The vision shattered as abruptly as it had appeared, and Lara stumbled back, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The relic's energy had overwhelmed her senses, and for a moment, she wasn't sure where she was. But one thing was clear, the path ahead would not be easy. The power she had just glimpsed could change everything. And with it came a terrifying responsibility. A sudden crash echoed from the tunnel behind her, snapping Lara back to reality. The creature, the one the Watchers had warned her about, was breaking through the barrier. She could hear its screech growing louder, its claws scraping against the walls of the tunnel as it closed in on her position. Without another thought, Lara turned and bolted toward the exit. She had no time to waste. The Watchers had given her a glimpse of the truth, but she had to reach the heart of the relic before it was too late. The Council's agents were closing in. And the creature, whatever it was, would not stop until it had her. The chamber was far too large, its expanse too vast to navigate easily. But Lara didn't stop. She sprinted, every step driven by the weight of the decision she had to make. She could feel the energy of the relic surging behind her, pulling at her, urging her forward. It was no longer just a question of survival. It was a question of what kind of future humanity would have. She reached the exit of the chamber just as the creature's roar echoed through the cavern. The walls trembled with the force of its presence, and Lara knew she couldn't outrun it. But she wasn't trying to outrun it. She was trying to find a way to control it. To master the power that lay ahead. As she emerged into another dark tunnel, she caught a fleeting glimpse of movement in the shadows. And then, from the corner of her eye, she saw something that made her blood run cold, a figure, standing at the edge of the tunnel. It wasn't a Watcher. It wasn't one of her crew. It was something far worse. It was a member of the Council. Lara's breath caught in her throat as the figure stepped out of the shadows. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to fight, to do anything to get away from the cold presence of this mysterious Council agent. But she was rooted to the spot, her feet frozen to the ground as though the very tunnel around her had become a prison. The air felt thick and oppressive, as though it were closing in on her with every passing second. "You're too late, Captain," the figure said again, its voice low, mocking. "The power you seek. The power doesn't belong to you," Lara interrupted, her voice filled with defiance. She stepped forward, her eyes narrowing as she tried to get a clearer look at the figure. It was tall and cloaked in shadow, its face hidden beneath the hood. But there was something familiar about the voice, something that tugged at the edges of her memory. The figure chuckled, a soft, almost inaudible sound that sent a shiver down Lara's spine. "You think it's your choice, don't you? You think you can simply walk in and claim the power that belongs to the Council? You are nothing but a pawn, Captain." "I'm not a pawn," Lara spat, her anger rising. "And I'm not afraid of you." The figure's laughter died, and for a moment, the silence was deafening. "You should be," it said coldly. "The Council has been watching you. They know everything about you. Everything." Lara's mind raced. The Council had been monitoring her? How could they have known where she was, what she was doing? The thought was enough to make her stomach twist. But she couldn't let fear take hold. "Not now." "What do you want?" she demanded, her fists clenched at her sides. "What are you here for?" The figure's head tilted slightly, as if studying her with an unnerving amount of interest. "What I want is irrelevant, Captain. What matters is that you have unleashed something far beyond your comprehension. You awakened the relic, and now, you must deal with the consequences." Lara's pulse quickened as realization began to dawn on her. The relic wasn't just a weapon, it was a force of nature. Something so powerful that the Council had kept it hidden for millennia. And now, she had awakened it. But there was more. Much more. "What happens if I can't control it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. You won't be able to control it, the figure replied, its voice dripping with finality. You never had a choice in the matter. The relic chooses who it will empower, and it is already too late for you. Lara's blood ran cold as the figure's words hit her like a physical blow. Too late? No. She couldn't accept that. Not now, not when she had come this far. The truth was within her grasp, the key to humanity's future. There had to be a way to stop the Council, to use the relic's power to reshape the galaxy for the better. She had to find it. You're wrong, Lara said, her voice gaining strength. I won't let you or the Council stop me. The figure stepped forward, its long, skeletal hand reaching out from beneath the cloak. It's not up to you anymore. The relic has already chosen, and the path you are on is one of destruction. The Council will not allow humanity to wield such power. They will not let you bring it back. Lara's breath caught in her chest. Destruction? Was that what she was really unleashing? The vision she had seen earlier, the future where humanity controlled the power of dark energy, had seemed so promising. But what if she was wrong? What if the Council's warnings were justified? What do you want from me? Lara demanded again, her voice trembling slightly. The figure's eyes, glowing from within the shadow of the hood, focused on her with a piercing intensity. I want you to understand the truth. The Council does not fear you, Captain. They fear what you might become. Lara took a step back, her mind racing. She had heard this before, from the Watchers. Humanity was feared for its potential. But what if they were wrong? What if the power she sought could be used for good? The figure seemed to sense her hesitation and smiled beneath the hood, a cruel, twisted smile that made Lara's blood run cold. You cannot control what you have awakened. You cannot hope to wield the power of the relic without consequences. You are playing with forces that you do not understand. The galaxy has seen what happens when dark energy is misused. It will not allow another catastrophe. Lara's heart pounded in her chest as she thought of the destruction the Council spoke of. But then her thoughts turned to her crew, to the people she had left behind on the Aurora. She couldn't turn back now. She had already made her choice. I won't let you dictate what happens, Lara said, her voice hard with resolve. I will use the power of the relic. I will uncover the truth, and I will make my own fate. The figure seemed to regard her for a long moment, its gaze piercing, before it spoke again. Very well, Captain. If you insist on continuing down this path, then you will learn the true cost of defying the Council. You will understand what it means to wield such power. With that, the figure moved aside, revealing a doorway behind it. The tunnel beyond was dark, but Lara could feel the pull of the relic's energy growing stronger. She knew what she had to do. She had come too far to turn back now. The truth, the power, was waiting for her. But as she took a step forward, the figure's voice called out once more. Do not think you can escape what's coming, Captain. The Council's agents are already on their way. And when they find you, they will make sure that you, and everything you've discovered, disappears forever. Lara turned, her gaze locked with the figures, and she nodded. Then let them come. I'll be ready. Lara moved swiftly through the dark passage, her every sense heightened. The power of the relic surged within her, thrumming like a heartbeat beneath her skin. She could feel the weight of the decision she had made. The Council's agents were coming for her, but it didn't matter. She had no choice now. She had to reach the core of the relic. She had to uncover its secrets. The tunnel opened up into another vast chamber, even larger than the one before. At the center of the room stood a towering structure, a column of dark metal that seemed to pulse with an energy so powerful it nearly knocked Lara off her feet. It was the heart of the relic. The source of the power. As she approached, the energy around her grew more intense, nearly suffocating. The symbols on the walls flickered and glowed brighter, their pulsing rhythm almost hypnotic. Lara reached out, her hand trembling slightly, and touched the surface of the column. The energy surged through her again, this time far more intense than before. Her vision blurred, and the world around her seemed to shift. She saw flashes, glimpses of the past, of humanity's history, of battles fought long ago. And then, as before, the vision shifted. She saw the future, a future where humanity controlled the relic's power. But this time, it was different. This time, the future was dark. She saw herself, standing at the helm of a vast fleet, commanding legions of soldiers, her face cold and determined. But this was no utopia. It was a vision of war, of chaos. The power she had sought to control had consumed her. It had twisted her, turned her into something else. The vision shattered, and Lara was left standing in the chamber, breathless, her heart pounding. The weight of the revelation crushed her. The power of the relic could save humanity, or it could destroy it. And now, she was caught between those two possibilities. She had to make a choice. Lara turned to face the column once more, her heart heavy with the knowledge of what was at stake. She could feel the power coursing through her, but now she knew what it was capable of. The question wasn't whether she could control it. The question was whether she should. The ground trembled again, this time more violently, as if the very chamber itself was coming alive. Lara gripped the side of the column, her fingers digging into the cold metal. The relic hummed in response to the tremors, its energy pulsing more erratically. She could feel it within her, vibrating through her bones, alive with power. It was as though the relic was calling to her, urging her to embrace its strength. But she couldn't shake the feeling that the path she was on could lead to destruction, not salvation. A loud explosion rocked the chamber, and debris rained down from above, sending up clouds of dust and dirt. Lara's heart skipped a beat as the sound of heavy boots echoed from the far tunnel. The Council's agents were closing in. They had found her. Her hand lingered on the column, as though it might offer her an answer, but there was no time for hesitation. The agents were coming, and they wouldn't stop until they had the relic, until they had the power that could reshape the galaxy. Lara had already seen what could happen if humanity controlled this power. A vision of destruction. A future of war. She had to stop it. But how? Lara took a deep breath and turned toward the entrance of the chamber. The faint light from the relic illuminated the hallway beyond, casting long shadows across the ground. She had to act fast. The relic was too dangerous to fall into the wrong hands. But there was more at stake now than just her survival. The fate of humanity rested on her shoulders. The rumbling from the tunnel grew louder, and Lara knew that the agents were getting closer. She had to find a way to stop them. She couldn't let them take the relic, not now, not when it had the potential to change everything. "Stop hiding, Captain," a voice called out from the tunnel. The words were sharp, biting, but it was the tone that struck Lara the hardest. Cold, emotionless. It was a voice she recognized. The figure from earlier, the one who had appeared in the chamber, stepped forward into the light. His face was obscured by a hood, but Lara could see the faint outline of his features, a sharp jawline and cold eyes that gleamed with arrogance. He was the one who had been hunting her, the one who had warned her of the Council's power. But now, it was clear, he wasn't just a messenger. He was a part of the plan. "Do you really think you can stand against the Council?" he sneered, his voice dripping with disdain. "You're nothing. You're just a human, playing with forces you can't possibly understand." Lara's pulse quickened, but her resolve only hardened. She could feel the relic's power surging within her, urging her forward. It was tempting, so tempting, to let the relic's energy flow through her. To use it. But she had to remember what she had seen. The future of war, the destruction. That was the path she would follow if she gave in to the power. But there was another way. She had to believe that. "I'm not playing with forces I can't understand," Lara said, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her. And I'm not afraid of you or the council. I will stop this. The agent's lips curled into a cruel smile. You think you can stop the inevitable? You're too late. The council has already prepared for every possible outcome. You don't control the relic, Captain. It controls you. Lara shook her head. No. I control it. And I control what happens next. Without warning, the agent lunged forward, his hand reaching out toward her. Lara instinctively raised her arm, and to her surprise, the relic responded. A surge of energy shot out from her fingertips, striking the agent's hand. He recoiled, his body momentarily flickering as though his very form was not entirely solid. But the agent's resistance was swift. He recovered, his eyes narrowing with fury. You're making a mistake, he warned, his voice low and dangerous. The council will not allow this. You will fall just like the others who have tried to wield this power. Lara stood firm, her hand still glowing.
With the relic's energy. The council can't control what they don't understand. But I won't be their pawn. I'll destroy what they fear, and I'll rebuild it in a way that protects humanity. The agent's eyes flickered with something like fear, but it was quickly replaced with a steely resolve. Then you will die trying. As the agent stepped forward again, Lara raised her hand once more. The energy from the relic surged, wrapping around her like a living thing. It coiled through her veins, rushing to her fingertips. She could feel the power. She could feel the weight of the responsibility. But she couldn't do it alone. Suddenly, she heard footsteps behind her, loud, purposeful. She turned just as Markson and the rest of her crew entered the chamber, their faces grim, their weapons drawn. They were here. They had come to fight. Captain. Markson called out, his voice full of relief. We've got your back. Lara didn't hesitate. Get ready, she shouted. We're not leaving until we stop the council and take control of the relic. We fight together. The crew, loyal and determined, formed ranks beside her. Markson, Doran, and the others took positions, their weapons raised and ready. The agent hesitated, his gaze flicking between Lara and the crew. You're making a mistake, he said again, his voice low but with an edge of desperation. The council will wipe you all out. You don't have the power to fight this. Lara looked at her crew, her heart swelling with pride. These were her people. Her family. And they weren't afraid to stand with her. We may not have the power of the council, but we have something they don't, the truth. And we're not going to let anyone stop us from making our own future. The agent's expression darkened. You'll regret this, he said, before raising his hand. The air around him shimmered, and a surge of energy erupted from his palm. The blast sent the crew scattering, but Lara stood her ground. She was no longer just a captain. She was the wielder of the relic's power, and she would use it. With a roar, Lara thrust her hand forward. A wave of energy shot out from her, colliding with the agent's blast. The force of the collision sent shockwaves through the chamber, shaking the walls and sending debris crashing down from above. The agent staggered back, his body flickering in and out of existence, the energy surrounding him unstable. But he wasn't finished.
He launched another attack, more vicious than before, his eyes burning with anger. But Lara was ready. She summoned every ounce of energy from the relic, feeling it surge through her, filling her with strength. She focused, pushing the power forward, and this time, the blast from her hand struck true. The agent let out a strangled cry as the energy engulfed him. He flickered one last time, his form unstable, before collapsing to the ground in a heap. For a moment, the chamber was silent. The crew stood frozen, their eyes wide as they processed what had just happened. Lara stood over the fallen agent, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The relic's power still surged through her, but it was different now. Controlled. She had learned to harness it, to channel it. And with that power, she had struck a blow against the council. But the battle was far from over. Lara turned to face the crew, her voice steady. This is just the beginning. We still have to stop the Council. We need to find a way to destroy their grip on the galaxy, and to ensure that the relic is used for good. Markson nodded, his face grim but resolute. We'll follow you, Captain. Whatever it takes. Lara felt a sense of pride swell within her chest. She had faced the Council, the power of the relic, and the truth about humanity's place in the galaxy. But now, she was ready to fight for a future where humanity would not be controlled by fear, but by their own strength and resolve. And with her crew at her side, there was no force in the galaxy that could stop them. The relic, its power now contained within Lara, pulsed gently in her hand. She had won this battle, but the war was far from over. The Council would retaliate, but Lara knew one thing: humanity had the power to change its own destiny. And as long as she had her crew, she would fight for that future. The final lesson was clear: the true strength of humanity didn't lie in the relic or the power it wielded, it lay in the choices they made, the actions they took, and the bonds they forged along the way. And in the end, that was what would define them. The relic was no longer just a weapon. It was a symbol, of hope, of survival, and of humanity's unyielding will to shape its own fate.